Hi everyone. If I mess up, it's because it's 1 a.m. where I locally and legally am. So, although I have had plenty of tea, I am nominally awake and propped up by caffeine. I'm going to be reading from a thing that is basically queer pirates in space. And let's see. There we go. The red scholar is dead. The words, at first a barely uttered whisper, went along the fleet, gaining strength as they did, from the largest mine ships to the smaller three-plates crafts, from the open the voids to the planet hoppers. The red scholar is dead. Defiant firecrackers, noisy, screaming processions of mourners, drunken meals degenerating into fights. And all the while Xích Si, leaning in the darkness of the hall where the pirates had imprisoned her, prayed to her long-dead ancestors to be forgotten. She was only one of their captives, a small and insignificant scavenger the pirates had attacked, almost as an afterthought, charring her battered-down ship and breaking her bots with frightening ease, and marching her into the small and suffocating space. Of course they would not expect ransom from such a poor-looking ship. They would press her into service as a bondsperson on their own ships, using her until she broke, if she was lucky. If she was not, there were other, darker uses for bondspeople, especially once wine had flowed freely and pirates were in the mood for pain or pleasure, or both. Please, please, please. At least she was alive, not like Nyungai and her former crewmates from the Leaping Carp, the ship that had been boarded and pillaged so long ago. At least she had a chance of being used, rather than being tortured or killed. She remembered fleeing in the escape pod with the noises of battle still raging around her, back to the safety of Triohoa port, remembered the vid of Yungai body when the militia had found the wreck of the Leaping Carp. The eyes shrivel in their orbits, the broken texture of the lips, the teeth rattling loose and refracting starlight like jewels, and the wrists and ankles chafed where she'd struggled against the magnetic holds. They'd pinned Guy to the ship without an unreality suit and jettisoned it all in deep spaces, and Xích hadn't been here for any of it, hadn't been able to defend her the when Guy had defended Xích presence on the venture to the ship owners and merchant families. At least Xích was alive, but Guy had been alive too, before they started on her. The door opened, blowing inside the din of firecrackers and the stench of cheap wine. No, not already, please. Xích tried to fold herself as small as possible against the bulwark, hands scrabbling for purchase against smooth, oily metal. So you're the one. The voice was low and cultured. For a moment its owner was only a dark silhouette in the doorway, and then the lights came on in the cell, and some kind of ambient filter descended, silencing the noises from outside. The newcomer was a mine ship, and not with a ship's usual avatar, but a human for shape. A female official with long flowing robes and a top knot, except that where the hair flowed down and met the clothes, there were stars and nebulas, winking in and out of existence, and her eyes had no whites or irises. They were the color of the void, dark, with no glimmer of light. You're the ship, Xích said, the one on which she was imprisoned, her prison cell only one room in a vast body, the avatar only a fraction of the ship's attention. Everything else focused on passengers and moving between the stars, on bots repairing tears on the hull or maintaining recyclers, filtration systems and airlocks. The ship. The pirate ship. My name is the ricefish, resting. Ricefish used child to refer to Xích, elder aunt to refer to herself. A gulf, but not such a wide one. Xích knew the name. That was not just any ship. Ricefish was the Red Scholar's wife. Her widow now. The Red Consort that called her in Triohoa port. The Red Consort and the Red Scholar. Legendary pirates. A ship and a human. The founders of the pirate alliance that plagued the twin streams. The two asteroid groups stretching in the shadow of the Fire Palace. The red-hot mass that was a long-dead civilization's destroyed homeland. What could someone like her want with someone like Xích? Behind Ricefish was a woman of indeterminate age, her hair shorn close to the scalp. She'd have looked like a reprobate monk, if not for the harshness of her expression, the gun and knives in her belt, and the lavish haphazardness of her clothing. A magistrate's wing hat, an elaborate cloth in 5 layers, 2 physical ones and 3 in overlays, showing clouds and rain and half-bitten peaches and other faintly suggestive images. She stood as if at rest, one hand nonchalantly resting on a knife's hilt, her role as a bodyguard clear. The ship's hands moved, smoothly and far too fast, throwing something towards Xích Si's. Not just hands, bots. She must have had her own bots behind them, for even an avatar with the full overlays of perception adjustments couldn't physically move anything. Something metallic clattered on the floor. Pick them up. Restraints? But then Xích Si looked up and saw that they were her dead bots. What kind of ordeal was that meant to be? I don't understand, lady. She used a pronoun that she reserved for high officials, abasing herself as abjectly as she could. Ricefish's face shifted briefly. Anger? Annoyance? Any moment now she was going to stride into the cell, or the Xích Si dragged out of it. I'm sorry, I didn't mean impertinence. Xích Si crawled across the floor, picking up her bots. The weight should have been familiar in her hands, but it just felt light, hollow. They'd been charred, and then gutted, their broken innards spilling in sharp fragments on Xích Si's palms. She turned them, seeking something, anything that would have survived. The myriad legs his show painstakingly assembled were snapped off, the senses crowning the body removed, the small, round body itself scored over and over, broken and charred like everything taken by pirates, like every one taken. She closed her eyes, trying to hold back the tears that filled them. You killed them, she said, her mouth toasted of salt. So they are yours. You built them? Yes. Xích Si opened her eyes. She was kneeling in the middle of the floor, and there was no cover or shelter left anymore. Good. Ricefish moved. One moment she was in the doorway, and the next she was kneeling in front of Xích Si. Look at me, she said. A gentle pressure under Xích Si's chin. She wasn't in the physical layer, of course, but it was passed on through the overlays, becoming a perception on Xích Si's skin, a feeling of oily warmth spreading from Ricefish's finger, just as Ricefиш would feel the cold, shivering touch of Xích Si's own skin, how Xích Si wanted to pull away, but couldn't afford to. Ricefish's face was a matriarch's, weathered and lined, with dark brown skin that shone as if lit from within. It looked human, almost. The eyes were black from end to end, and her lips, slightly parted, revealed teeth that weren't white or yellowed, but the fractured, sheeny color of metal in deep spaces. She breathed, or appeared to, but what she heard wasn't air inhaled or and exhaled, but the distant sound of mothers, and a faint, haunting melody on an instrument that wasn't flute or zither. Look at me. She couldn't look away. She might as well have been entrapped in a black hole's approach, slowly and inexorably drawing close, her own lips parting, air mingling with Ricefish's ethereal breath, close enough to make contact, close enough to feel the warmth. The ship withdrew her hand. It felt as if she'd cut off a puppet's string. Xích Si sagged, struggling to gather her thoughts in a maelstrom of confusion. You'll do, Ricefish said. She was still kneeling, but she did it like an empress. Do what? Xích Si said. Please don't. I'm not here to torture you. Ricefish was faintly amused, but beneath it all was that same anger. I'm here because I need your services. As a bondsperson, fear made her bold, reckless. The laughter this time was unmistakably amusement. No, as my wife. The words made no sense, no matter how many times she turned them in her head. I don't understand, she said. The Red Scholar had been Ricefish's wife, and she was dead now. Why would Ricefish want another one? Consider it a business proposal. There's no love involved. This is a matter of contracts. Some things that she couldn't read, changing the color of her eyes to indigo blue for a brief moment. Of protection.